boys jumped over the wall, recorded a podcast beloved by all. And who are these three little pod boys, you might ask? Well, it's the world's trashiest podcast, of course, the Pod People. I'm Matisse Van Rossum, and I reserve the right to die.
I'm Ben Sheets, and I'm gonna need the soap for this episode.
You will.
Soak that throat! Soak that throat!
Oh my god, what a great start. Hi, I'm Cleveland Mosier, but today you can call me Humper S. Thompson.
Well, folks, if you didn't think that you were in for a weird one, you're in for a weird one.
A very weird one.
Yep.
Buckle up.
We're talking about probably the weirdest film we've ever watched for the podcast.
Greasy Strangler was pretty weird.
I think this is weirder and less accessible too.
Yeah,
I like it. I
say.
like it better than the Greasy Strangler, but I
Same.
think it's weirder and less accessible. We are, of course, talking about the 2009 Harmony Korine film Trash Humpers. The one Harmony Korine foray into horror, maybe?
His take on found footage movies.
Yes.
I think Cleveland aptly put it while we were watching.
Like 5 minutes in.
It's like if the Texas Chainsaw family made a
home movie.
a home movie.
That was it, yeah. I just right off the bat, like, I knew something was wrong when the movie started. Like, I was like, yeah, like, something is not right here. It's not good. I felt uncomfortable. But there wasn't anything necessarily to set it up that there was going to be murders. We had talked beforehand about whether or not this was even a pod movie. Frankly, after seeing the movie, I don't understand why that was a conversation. This was definitely like a horror. This is definitely a horror film in my eyes.
I'll allow it.
Yeah, you did, regardless. So it's
We're here.
It's a non.
It has been allowed.
Yeah, it's a non-debate. But
It's a disturbing film for sure, and there is some murder and violence, but in sort of a different way than you might expect. It's definitely not a traditional horror film.
No.
But
it's not really a traditional
it's not
anything.
a traditional, really anything,
Yeah.
to say the least. My favorite was about 5 or so minutes into the movie when Cleveland was just like, is there enough material for a podcast in this movie?
Well,
It was like, yeah. Just wait.
in fairness, this
There was.
movie really starts oppressively, I guess you could say.
Yes. I mean, it just is oppressive. It starts oppressively, it continues to be oppressive, and it finishes oppressively.
But especially with the first 20 minutes, like once you get over that hump, I feel like you kind of
Pun
fall
intended.
into it, because the first 15 minutes is mostly them humping trash.
Yep. And when they're not humping trash, they might as well be. It's great. Over the years, y'all have broken me, and I love it. I'm here for it. I need to go back and listen to our Hausu episode, Ben, that we did, and laugh and giggle at my
You've come so far.
my wide-eyed
sweet
self
summer
who
child.
was so confused by Hausu. It's funny, it was like 2 years ago. I'm an adult. I'm like 28. But like I was never really exposed to too much like art house cinema. I mean, for God's sakes, like, I went to school for like classical Italian painting. Like, I'm very steeped in like tradition and the rest of it. So art house isn't really what I was exposed to. I studied art, but like traditional painting and realism, and that field loves to turn its nose up at modern art. Oh man, I don't know where and when it happened, but I loved this movie. I thought it was great.
It's awesome.
It was a treat.
Yeah, it's great. It's truly one of a kind.
Yeah.
And there are a number of things, and I think too, like, I still could have then, a few years ago, if I had seen some of Harmony Korine's other work, because if you've seen his other films, it's a lot easier to get where it's coming from. I think if you just put this on without context for someone who hasn't seen any of Harmony Korine's work, you don't have the same amount of like faith and trust in the director as to where the film is going.
I think this might have been my first Harmony Korine.
No way.
I think so, yeah.
Interesting.
Ben got me into Harmony Korine freshman year of college, and I think this is the first movie that we watched. Maybe it was Spring Breakers, but I don't think so. I think Trash Humpers was my first exposure to Harmony Korine, and I'll admit, like, the first time I didn't get it. Not that it's necessarily a film that you have to quote unquote get. That sounds pretentious, and I think that's an accusation that gets leveled at Harmony Korine a lot. It's a vibes movie,
and I totally get that too. Like, this is a movie where if someone told me this is like a half star for them, worst movie ever made, I would get it. You
More
know?
power to
if
you.
you're looking at it from a very literalist angle, I can see how someone could absolutely despise this movie.
I can imagine,
You know?
like, so my dad is still like very much in that world, right? And I can imagine like telling him about this movie and saying like, yeah, it's like if the Texas Chainsaw Massacre family like made their own home video and it's mostly them like humping trash cans or whatever. I could just see like the disappointment on his face and him just say like, why? You know, like why would you watch that?
Well, that's the thing. Like, if you go into a movie like this asking yourself why, you're already going in the wrong direction.
You're gonna have a bad time, yeah.
And I think that your analogy to like the Texas Chainsaw, the Sawyer family, this being like kind of what if they made a home video, while it's apt, I also think that that explanation is almost too structured for this movie.
Yes.
Like that almost adds too much of a narrative to the film.
With realism. Yeah. Like it's like if the real life one, you know, did that. Like it's and they got a camera somehow and were able to figure it out from time to time, and you just got whenever the camera happened to be on. For the most part, the scenes don't feel staged. They feel like they've got the camera out because they're doing some sort of family event. And when I say family event, I mean forcing two random men to eat pancakes sogged with soap. Or
Soak
something.
that throat!
Soak that throat. Oh, God. There's a naturalism to the whole film. And again, like, the quality of the film is amazingly terrible and degraded, and it looks frankly gorgeous. The style is so rich. The camera is like constantly like losing its tracking. There's a great deal of like chromatic aberration as the colors are breaking down.
A lot of it is shot at nighttime, so you get some really nice glow from street lights and things like that. I definitely agree. And I think one of the things about this movie is it's barely a movie in a traditional sense. It feels a lot of times more like an artifact, like it was a videotape you found in a gutter at some point.
I believe that was actually Harmony Korine's intention too. Like, he was even going so far as to consider distributing it by just like making copies of the VHS and just like leaving them at random places around town or mailing them into the police. The only reason that they decided against that is because by distributing it that way, they would forfeit copyright. They would just be in the public domain if they did that. But the goal was to, like you said, make it feel like an artifact, make it feel like something that you would find in a gutter or in the river wrapped in a plastic bag, or, you know, just like on the street or something. What I didn't realize I was reading too is that there was only something like 4 months between conception and the first premiere of the film. The production took about 2 weeks with another 2 weeks for editing, and they were the 4 protagonists in this film literally lived on the street for the entirety of the production. Once they put the costumes on, they did not take them off until filming was complete. Wow. So for about 2 weeks, they wandered around Knoxville, Tennessee, Harmony Korine's hometown, just breaking shit, staging these weird little tableaus, humping trash, and at night sleeping under bridges and in tires and shit like that. And then after 2 weeks or so, when they'd gotten all the footage that Harmony Korine thought they needed, that was it. They took off the costumes and were done. And then Harmony Korine sat and edited it on VHS. And then that was the movie. And if that doesn't like just distill how and why this movie feels as authentic as it does, is because it is just following 4 people around a city as they just do delinquent shit.
That gave me chills hearing about how the making of it. That's so cool. Wow.
We should talk a little bit more about the characters too, right? Because like they are very vaudevillian almost in how obnoxious, forcing sexual acts and they do shrieking of sorts. I guess it's supposed to be laughing, but it almost sounds like just a banshee.
It's a very country. It's a very country thing to do. You know, whenever you get excited, you just kind of rear your head back and go like that. You know, like you gotta.
But
live it up.
Harmony Korine himself, who is one of the characters and spends most of the time behind the camera, does this iconic, you could call it, just absolutely obnoxious cackling laugh that does sound almost like an old-fashioned like witches cackle.
Yeah, it's
like it's very forced. It's completely inauthentic. It's very grating, but it's effective.
Yeah. And all of the characters we should mention, I don't know if we've mentioned this yet, they're all in old people's costumes, essentially. Like
it's like the Spirit Halloween old man mask.
Yeah.
And all three are wearing the same one.
Yeah, and it's very horrifying, honestly.
It's frankly, wretched.
Yeah, because like they're pretty good masks. Like they're pretty convincing, but they land squarely in the uncanny valley where they're definitely masks, but they're very authentic looking masks. Harmony Korine's wife, Rachel Korine, plays the only female character, and she has like a wig on, and Harmony Korine's character has a wig on too. But the other two are just like bald. That's part of the thing too, is that like their physicality is not elderly, which was also by design. I was reading Harmony Korine say he thinks there's something horrifying about old people who don't move like they're old. So like these characters are very spry. They dance a lot. They jump up on top of things. But they also wear like these old like white hospital sneakers kind of. So there's definitely like a very geriatric vibe about them. One of them's hobbling around on crutches the whole time. It's a difficult movie to describe.
Yeah, and it's like very nightmarish, right? In that like it's not super literal in what it's, showing. It's something that feels like just literally out of a nightmare.
Well, you're just put in the scene. You're not allowed to have any exposition. There's no point of reference to begin with. You're just thrust out like a babe in the woods. You don't know what these people are going to do next. You don't know.
It's entirely unpredictable.
You don't know when the scene will end because the footage runs out. You don't know when it'll start again and where and what they'll be doing, because who the fuck are these people, right? Why are they smashing TVs on the side of the highway? Why are all three of them wearing the same old person mask? Why are they making these weird voices? Why
are they humping trash cans?
Yeah. Why are we here? And
why are they filleting sticks that they find on the road?
What the fuck, man?
Why are they carrying around like baby dolls and shit?
Yeah,
why are they doing anything?
Some of the shots of them just like putting like tree branches like in their mouths with all the leaves on them and stuff. Like
deep
you said,
throating
like what the fuck? What the flying fuck?
At the same time, though,
yikes.
It's also like really funny. I find much of this movie like very, very like laughably entertaining.
Yeah, it almost has like a deep into YouTube kind of vibe where it's, just weird videos you unearth from deep within YouTube's tunnels and algorithms.
Totally juvenile humor too.
Which is funny, because those were a lot of the things I didn't like about The Greasy Strangler, but here I loved them.
Well, The Greasy Strangler has more artifice, like noticeable artifice.
Yes.
Unlike Trash Humpers, The Greasy Strangler is a film that is written with lines and characters, and it's very staged, and like the production design is very meticulous and stuff like that. Like it feels artificial because it is. And Trash Humpers just feels like something you pick up off the street and pop in and like, what the fuck did I just find? And I think most of it is like, I don't know how much of this movie is written, if any.
Some of the poetry sequences,
some of the monologues too.
Yeah, probably. But even so, like,
because it reminds me of Harmony Korine's poetry a lot.
Yeah. But I mean, he just hangs around those type of people. Like, that's where he gets so many of those ideas. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if, like, the various other kooky characters that our protagonists encounter in this movie are, just fucking freestyling,
Waxing poetic.
Yeah.
Stream of consciousness, nonsense. I remember being about halfway into the film and saying to y'all, I think that y'all would actually really like Gravity's Rainbow for this. Yeah, this and Gravity's Rainbow have a lot in common. It's another like narrative of like extreme highs and lows, and it often goes back and forth between like narrative and then the story just inevitably breaks down into stream of consciousness again until it is just mindless garbles and rambling, and then slowly snap back to reality, mom spaghetti. Yeah, there's a similar thing here where we kind of come in and out of like these weird soliloquies and then fall back into some semblance of a plot, where you find out they're murdering people or whatever. And Gravity's Rainbow also plays with those extreme highs and lows when it comes to gratuity as well. Like often, like there are times where the realism is very horrifying, and then the stream of consciousness is beautiful, like it's gorgeous. And then there are times where it's reversed, and the realism is beautiful, as these characters are appreciating these beautiful moments, and then the stream of consciousness falls into really wretched waters. And I got a lot of the same feelings out of this. It's a really heavy book. I think they pulled it. I think it was his Pulitzer Prize or one of those. It was pulled because half the judges found out after they'd given the book the award. Because I think half the time they give the book the award before they've even read the book, because they found out the book had scat play in it, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we don't want this in our we don't want this in our collection." After all, and it's and again, it's one of those like extreme lows like in the book, and it is with intent, and it is clear like what it's trying to do, but it is rough. It's a hard book to read, man. I got to tell you, it's the hardest book I've ever had to read.
That's the thing. Like, I think two things that contribute to the success of Trash Humpers, in my opinion, is the medium and the runtime. It's only 73 minutes. If it was another hour longer, I don't know if I would like it as much as I do. I think that at a certain point it would become overwhelming, and because of the way that it's shot and presented, like, again, it's the authenticity. Like, if this same movie was shot with like really high-end cameras using like professional lighting and sound recording and stuff like that, I might hate it. It's tough to say. It falls into like such a weird little niche, and also like I think it's the kind of movie that only somebody like Harmony Korine can make. Yep. It fits in so well with the rest of his filmography.
Well, and it's funny because we were talking about how Trash Humpers came out right before Spring Breakers.
Before Spring Breakers,
and we were talking about how wild that is. But honestly, thematically, they're very similar.
Thematically, it's not a stretch. It's the
application.
It's the presentation. Yeah, Spring Breakers is like the opposite of this in terms of presentation. It's highly stylized, very colorful, very well shot. You've got fucking James Franco and fucking Gucci Mane in it. Like, you've got and also like Selena Gomez and Vanessa Hudgens. You've got like named actors, whereas this is just like, it's fucking, it's trash. It's Trash Humpers. I have a hard time
I'm the trash man.
Expressing, yeah.
Frank, what the hell are you doing, man?
That's my character. I'm the trash man. I come out, I throw trash all over the ring, and then I start eating garbage. And then I pick up the trash can and I smash the guy on the head.
Oh, that's gonna be a disaster.
No, nobody's gonna get hurt. I'm telling you, it's like you said, it's all fake.
But it has nothing to do with the troops, Frank. A 60-year-old man eating trash? Who wants to see that?
No, but that's what people want.
Thematically, it's interesting how similar they are, though, right? Because like both of them are very much about freedom and trying to avoid the monotony of routine.
Unbridled freedom on the fringes of society.
Exactly, yeah. And how that can turn into hedonism and darkness in its own way as there becomes hyperfixation on sex and violence and
destruction.
cruelty.
I mean, these are themes that Harmony Korine like keeps playing with. Like that's what Gummo's about too. That's what parts of Julian Donkey Boy are about too. You know,
Whenever you mention Gummo, I always think of the forgotten Marx brother.
Well, that's what it's named after.
Oh, is it? Oh, interesting. Okay.
Gummo Marx.
Yeah.
I actually didn't know that.
Yeah. It was it's Harpo, Chico, Groucho, and there was Gummo and Zeppo later on.
What about Beppo?
No Beppo.
Bookity Beppo?
No, that's a restaurant chain.
Yeah, it is. Do you remember what it means?
Yeah, I do. Well, hold on, let me see if I can remember. Yeah, you're telling me about this because it's like in Milwaukee, right?
I mean, it's all over the country, but yeah, I had friends in Milwaukee who worked at it.
Let me think. Bookity Beppo. Beppo is mouth, right?
No, that's Buca. Beppo is a nickname for Giuseppe. That's why we talked about
Giuseppe's mouth. Yeah, that's right.
Beppo's hole.
Beppo's hole. Yeah.
That's why we brought it up on
Going
old
down to Beppo's hole.
Giuseppe.
Gonna get me a big Stromboli.
Damn, that should be their jingle.
Hire me, Bookity Beppo.
I'm gonna get
if you're
Bookity
listening.
Beppo on the phone.
Yeah, going down to Beppo's hole, getting me a big Stromboli. Anyway, back to the movie.
Going back to the freedom stuff a little bit, I want to read the bit of prose that they're driving in a car and looking at these houses at night. And I think the most striking monologue happens in that scene. And it's when the character says, "You don't really understand the importance, but sometimes when I drive through these streets at night, I can smell the pain of all these people living in here. I can smell how these people are just trapped in their lives, their day-to-day lives. They don't see much. Sometimes they get lost in it. Other times they just feel lost. I can feel their pain, like coming through these trees and these houses." That was a really striking scene, and it kind of, I feel like it's the core of the movie, really.
Well, yeah, because it's like an hour into a movie where we've just been watching this same character and his friends wander through the streets, smashing TVs, dragging baby dolls around on a string, and like humping garbage cans. It's funny. Maybe it's not funny, but it's like an interesting dichotomy to have that kind of monologue about like the pain that people in suburbia are suffering when like he and his friends are having a great time living on the street and being delinquent. It's great. I love it.
It's like those characters are making a very deliberate effort to not be suburban and get into American routine.
Absolutely.
And that's why we've been set off on this course of the movie. And, you know, I think Harmony Korine has joked about how this movie is really about America, the American dream and ideals. And when you think of it in that context of kind of hedonism and the ideas of freedom, it totally makes sense.
It's true. There really is this kind of like underbelly to Western society where we delight in destruction and violence and just fucking vibing on the streets, you know? Like I think every American has a trash humper inside of them. But do you want to free that trash humper, or do you want to keep him locked away?
The answer may surprise you. Or it may not. I mean, honestly, probably the answer's no. Maybe a little every once in a while. You can feed it. You can feed the trash humper, but don't let it out of the house.
There's several scenes in this movie, or little snippets, usually in between the tableaus, where they're just like in a parking lot, like tossing fluorescent light bulbs up into the air to like smash down on the ground. And that's fun, dude. You ever smashed a bunch of fluorescent light bulbs in a parking lot?
They like tap dance on top of it, too.
Yeah, dude.
Oh yeah. He's doing he does like a Fred Astaire number.
Yeah.
Like on top of like the shattered glass. It's great.
They're like smashing TVs with a sledgehammer. That shit's fun, man. Like if you're ever in a position to do that kind of stuff, it is fun.
It's really gratifying. Like it cuts to it like when they're already like throwing one of them like in midair, and you just see like this like tube Like, and you don't know what it is because, again, like, it's kind of grainy. It's at night. It's at a distance under a street light. And you see this, like, kind of weird, like, tube, like, spiral up through the air and then come down to the ground. And when it shatters, it was really impactful. It was kind of gorgeous. And, you know, they do it again. And I think I gasped because I didn't know what they were throwing. And when, like, it shatters, like, glass is like, whoa, that's a whole fucking fluorescent tube they're, like, throwing into the air. I don't know. It caught me off guard in a wonderful way. I loved that scene.
Well, that's the thing. It's like they really are the epitome of freedom, because not only are they free to do literally whatever they want, but they've also completely freed themselves from the desires of quote unquote normal people. You know, the desire to have a job and a house and like stability and comfort and stuff like that. Like they're freed from all of that. They don't want any of that. All they want to do is break shit and hump trash cans.
And murder people.
And occasionally murder some people.
This movie has a pretty decent body count. I wanted to mention, you know, over the past year, twice a week, in my studio's Discord, we've been watching found footage horror movies.
You should bring them trash humpers.
Well, actually, I did mention it the other night. Of course, my buddy Ted had already seen it, because he's seen them all. He's usually like showing us like his you know the collection of them and whatnot. We like to joke that like we're one of the only subscribing members of Found Footage Horror, which is a streaming service that has found footage horror movies.
That's so fucking niche.
It's
how
so
do they-
niche, right?
How do they make any money at all?
Ted, I think he's the only. I think he's the only.
Is that enough to
subscriber.
keep their business afloat?
I
It's
guess.
just
I
Ted's
guess it's enough to
business?
like pay the domain name and like keep up the rest of it. I don't know. And like probably the two other people who are subscribed, I'm sure. But I mean, more power to them. I hope. I wish them all the best. We certainly watch a lot of their movies. But you know, and you can find like a series of found footage horror movies and some weird like lectures on aliens as well. I don't know what that's about, but anyway, most of it's pretty xenophobic. But
that's the purpose of their site.
That's the money maker.
Oh,
Yeah, that's
You
see,
think
like
so?
you said it, and now it makes sense to me. The found footage horror stuff.
they're trying to get out the word.
Is,
They're
well,
mostly
no,
like
it's a front. It's so that so that
No.
more people, not necessarily a financial front, but more people will come and,
careful with it is. We don't like,
Allegedly.
allegedly, yeah.
alleged
Theoretically.
by
I
me,
mean, yeah.
parody, whatever. They've got their kooky xenophobic lectures on aliens, and they know that they can't get people to come watch those things, so they put them on a site surrounded by a bunch of other found footage horror movies, so some people might stumble upon those and be like, hey, you know what? I'm also xenophobic.
Mm-hmm. No, it's like you can almost play a game with like some of the alien ones where it's like, how long into this documentary are they going to reveal that they're an anti-Semite? Like at what point are they gonna like make it clear that they think like the world government is run by like a small collective? It's like, when is this gonna happen? Let's see.
All right, what's the timestamp? When's the first racial slur going to be dropped in this one?
So they have a pretty good collection of found footage horror films. There's some good ones, you know. But anyway, point is that like our whole group at this point are like all like experts on found footage movies, which I don't think is a point of pride. But anyway,
It's not. Most of them suck.
they do. They really do. And actually that brings it back to my point, which is this film succeeds in every way that most of those don't. You know, you get your occasional gem that might have a good idea or whatever else. What I do love about found footage horror movies is that they're so earnest. Whatever they're working with, it's all they have. And so much of the time. You know, you get your occasional, like, studio budgeted found footage horror movies, like your Paranormal Activities and whatnot. But for the most part, it's a couple of people with a camera on a weekend getting, quote, haunted by something. And
Well, yeah, because it's the easiest kind of movie to make. You can do it with the least amount of budget and equipment.
yeah, you just record, and then you have someone in the other room, like, bump a wall.
Yeah.
Like, and then they act scared over it, which, man, that gets old. But anyway, occasionally, like, they'll surprise you with something good. Or you start to get to know these people and these directors. Like, one of my favorites is, like, the Paranormal Farm trilogy, where this... I'm taking a moment to talk about these things, so I'll never have another opportunity. But, like, the Paranormal Farm trilogy, where the first one starts out, and you think that the main character is obviously the writer, it's all improv, but the writer-director character, like, this guy might be kind of gay. you know, and then by the third movie, like, he's doing all the scenes with his boyfriend, and he's like really like openly flamboyant and like much more comfortable with himself on camera, and it's amazing. Like, they have like whole scenes with them just like hanging out in a hot tub, and I'm just like, I love this. Like,
He used his art as a literal outlet
yeah.
to out himself.
Yeah, and it's beautiful, and it's
And that's what America's all about.
you know what's
isn't
cool
it?
too is that movie also ends with him finding out that he has psychic powers for no reason, and like
Oh,
you
so
know, can
he's
use
an
them to fight
he's
ghosts.
An X-Man.
Yeah, he's an X-Men who can fight ghosts.
He's an X-Men because he's gay and has superpowers.
It's true. That is kind of a staple among the X-Men. It's true.
That's what the X-Men's all about, baby.
I mean, which is why I think I gravitate towards it. But no, they're charming, and there's a number of legitimately good ones out there as well, like the Curse of Professor Sardonicus, which is fucking fantastic. Anyway, the point is, this film was more terrifying than just about any I'd seen, because it's so immersive, because you honestly believe, you're made to honestly believe that like these killers are just recording their activities, and it's all real murders. Right? What I mean by that is like realism, you know, in the murders. There's no ghosts, there's no ghouls or anything. It's just real people being free and expressing that freedom however they choose. And in some
it's not
cases, that's just
Gleefully
murdering
cackling
someone.
at
Yeah.
corpses.
Yeah.
It's not like they're necessarily out to kill. It's just
It's a byproduct.
They're doing whatever they want, and sometimes that happens to be killing people. Or if they're just doing something, somebody might just happen to die.
What's so interesting is they'll introduce characters throughout the film. You know, you have the weird the fake Siamese twins.
Yeah, which are very obviously just connected with like a tube sock that's like cut off at both ends, and it's going between each of their heads. Like
It's like pantyhose.
Well, and they take it off one of them takes it off at some point. So when you say fake Siamese twins, yes, that's what they are, but the film is not presenting them like they're actual Siamese twins.
Mm-hmm.
It's what the trash humper characters would force those people to wear and act like Siamese twins in.
I love how you don't know how much they're being held hostage in that scenario.
Well, in any
don't-
scenario.
Yeah, well, you don't know if those two, like the two Siamese chefs or whatever, like can leave at any time, or if they're there like for fear of their lives. And what I like is that I don't think they know either. And I love that,
the
like
same with, like, all
the
the
danger
characters.
there.
They're
Like there's a fascinating chaos in that.
And that brings in some genuine horror, you know, as they're forcing them to cook, as they're serving the pancakes, and
They're forcing them to pour dish soap on the pancakes
Yeah,
instead of syrup.
Because they bring out the pancakes and they accuse them. It's poison.
So then they go get the soap and force them to eat soapy pancakes.
Yeah.
But we don't see them after that, so we don't know what happens.
well,
to
they
them.
tell the story, right? The one tells the story of the Siamese twins, where one died and they wanted to stay with each other.
that is a real story. Those guys were I think they ended up in North Carolina, actually.
Where I think the movie was. No, I guess the movie was shot in Tennessee.
Yeah.
There's an allusion to North Carolina in the film.
I think it's in that scene when he's talking about the twins. I can't remember what their names are, but they're like famous Siamese twins from back in like pre-Civil War. They're part of like they made a bunch of money from like being in a traveling
Freak show
or something like that. They moved to the U.S. They moved to North Carolina. They bought a bunch of slaves because it was pre-Civil War.
Lord.
And I think he says in the story between them they had something like 24 children, and all that is true. I wish I could remember their names, but yeah, one of them died, and the other one like refused to have his dead brother surgically separated from him. So he also just died. Or maybe he was surgically separated and then died a couple of days later because he couldn't.
What's
live being
especially
separated.
spooky about that scene
Is the racism.
Yes, correct.
Yes.
That scene's mad racist.
But also, like, the trash humpers are demanding they tell a funny story. and he tells that story, and they get so hostile because it's sad.
It's like, I
and
told
then,
you to make us laugh, now I'm just depressed.
And suddenly, we don't see those characters again. And the implication, of course, is obviously we've seen what happens to characters.
Is one of them one of the corpses?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, that would make
the thing.
sense
Like,
with that story, right?
What's interesting about that is, like, they're the first non-trash Humper characters that we get, other than the little fat kid in the suit, who I also really love. But that's before, like, the stuff with the fake Siamese twins is, like, before we even see, like, the first dead body in the film. So I think it's, like, with hindsight, that's what makes it spooky, is like, oh, did they kill those guys too? Maybe was he one of them the dead body that we, see out in the woods? Because it's not until after that like stuff starts getting like progressively more sinister.
Which of course puts like the previous scene with like the kid like into even more horrifying context. Even though it was already horrifying because she teaches him to put a razor blade in an apple.
Like, and he's just hammering baby dolls' heads.
Yeah, they have like a baby doll wrapped in plastic, and at one point the kid is just like hammering its head with an actual hammer, going, "This is how you do it! This is how you do! This is how you should do it!" Just over and over again. Like, the characters' like weird fixations with like babies and like baby dolls definitely comes to a supremely sinister conclusion at the end of the film, but like so much of this movie is them playing with baby dolls, like the kind that sing, that you like pull the string. In that first scene, like Rachel Corinne's character is like cradling a baby, but it's fully wrapped in plastic.
That's Rachel Corinne? Mm-hmm. That's his wife?
Yeah, that's Harmony Corinne's wife, yeah. Who's one of the girls in Spring Breakers.
Really?
The one who gets shot by Gucci Mane.
Incredible. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
How about it? That's love.
That's love, man.
That's love.
Had to be. And then like later there's a scene where they're just like in a backyard and they've all found bikes somewhere, and each one has like a baby doll on the string, and they're like pulling it around behind the bikes, just like going around in a circle. It's like just about every scene incorporates like a baby doll somehow. So it's like they have some kind of fixation with like having a baby amongst them. Like,
well, it's interesting too because like they're all wearing like the elderly masks, so that like horrifying connotation of age, right? And again, like elderly people moving spryly is reflected in that as well.
And it's the lack of responsibilities of being a baby, I feel like is part of the fixation.
Wow,
but
yeah,
like
really
you said, it really comes to a haunting, horrifying finale with all the baby stuff. I don't know if we want to talk about that right away.
Yeah, I mean,
it leads in nicely, like when we see them like with a dog too, and I was just like, yo, they shouldn't be a dog anywhere near these people. Oh God. Which is not great when we see the rest. But I do like leading into this when they're all on like children's bicycles and they have like plastic baby dolls like tethered to them and they're just dragging them along like along like the street or like in a circle as they're like going around each other. Weird, creepy shit. I also do like when they meet the old man, and he's just like, turn off the goddamn baby doll. And we've been hearing it like constantly throughout the film.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the same song over and over again. They just turn it on and then turn it back off as it makes like some little tune.
One of the little things that I love about the scene where they're dragging along the baby dolls is they're riding around like an oven that's just sitting and decaying outside. I feel like Harmony Korine has such an eye for urban decay in his films.
Totally.
And it's just, this film is kind of the logical endpoint of that, where like everything is pure urban decay.
Yeah, I think he just grew up around that shit and has a sort of undying fascination with it.
It is fascinating because like you look at something so disparate. Right, it's something. What's the popular term these days? There's like the Reddit thread about buildings that are liminal. Like
liminal spaces.
Yeah, liminal spaces. Like, and it's the idea of like what is the purpose of this space and it not having one anymore?
Well,
like how do you purpose it?
It's
what do you put?
It's a transitory space. It's transition. Mm-hmm. Like it's caught in between two states of being.
Yeah. It's like, what do you do with that, and how do you exist in it? And I think this film was kind of an answer to that.
Well, I think
it's not a good one. It's not the answer you want to hear.
To like examine Harmony Korine's filmography as a whole, like, I think that's what makes him such an interesting and successful filmmaker, is because he's always had an eye for that shit in such a way that he, better than just about any other filmmaker I know, is capable of like presenting beauty from filth and like presenting the dregs of society in kind of like a wistful sort of way that I don't think that, you know, people often have. Because, I mean, we're so conditioned to look down on that kind of thing, to eschew degradation and filth and the people who live that, who live in that kind of life, you know? Our culture, especially in America, is, like, very anti-poor. What we continue to see in the news and stuff is all this, like, sick anti-homeless architecture and stuff that's designed to keep people from fucking sitting down or having a place to sleep when they don't have anywhere else. Like, as a society, we're very trained to look down on that shit, say, no, I don't want it near me, I don't want to look at it, I don't want to think about it. I think because it makes people feel guilty. And I think Harmony Korine is really good at showing a lot of those same kinds of aspects of what people consider disgusting and finding a strange kind of beauty in them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Trash Humpers is maybe a bad example of that in some respects, but especially especially stuff like Julian Donkey Boy or Gummo or even Spring Breakers, which is like aesthetically very pleasing, but about the same kind of shit. You know,
I think what he uses it in a different way in this film. There's still like such a keen eye for awareness. He uses the same tool but for ill, whereas in some of his other films, like it's used for good. I think the perfect sort of foil to Trash Humpers would probably be The Beach Bum, which shows like all of the beauty and love in being destitute, and the duality there. And I adore that about Beach Bum. Like I need to go back and watch that
Beach
film.
Bum rules.
It's such a good movie. But
great movie.
you know, here he uses it for ill, or to demonstrate evil and horror, because we see the beauty in this world where we don't want to see it, and it's uncomfortable because these are killers. These are, you know, like these people are not good, and they're free, but what they do with their freedom is the worst thing they can do. Which is bring about the suffering of others.
But there's at the same time, it speaks to like our primal lizard brain that wants to break, that wants to destroy, that wants to be free in that regard. Mm-hmm. And I think you're right. I think that is, it does bring a certain amount of discomfort in like trying to reckon with that. Because like I said before, man, like breaking old TVs is fun. Breaking shit is fun, you know?
Breaking people.
I mean, yeah, less fun.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not for everybody, but for...
Not recommended.
Not recommended.
Not a popular stance to take these days, but don't break people.
Hot take, breaking people is bad.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to break bad.
This is your
with
public
people.
public service announcement.
I do think that that a movie like this does speak to the part in us that longs for that kind of unbridled freedom where we have zero responsibilities and can just cause a little bit of chaos. Because that kind of thing is fun, especially if you're used to living in a, you know, normally extremely orderly, regimented life. You know,
and it shows the logical endpoint of that ideology taken to such an extreme, yeah.
Damn, this movie's like the Joker. Oh, shit.
Just wait. Guys, I'm having bad views about society. Am I the jonker now?
You're the jonker.
Oh, man. Damn it! Did I go jonker?
Trash Humpers turned you into the jonker.
No, I don't want to go jonker. Damn.
Dan, maybe I'm...
God damn it, Harmony Korine. You made me go jonker.
Maybe I'm the jonker.
Maybe we're all the jonker.
The junker.
Hey, I have a question. If we were all jonker, then we'd be a society of jonkers. And then what society would we be rebelling against?
See, we live in a society.
Yeah, but what
of
but,
jonkers?
But see, and then what is it? Then what's that? You know, it's not anything.
But that's the Jonkers' whole thesis. We live in a society that doesn't take care of one another like a society should. And the only way to make things more civil is to be more chaotic.
Is
the
to
only
kill
way
the Batman.
is to kill the Batman. That's the only way to live in a true society.
Cool.
The Trash Humpers, they live in the purest form of society, don't they? It's totally egalitarian. They do what they want. There's no rules. They take care of each other. They look out for one another.
Do they?
I think so. They have a birthday party for one of them while he's taking a shit at one point, remember?
Yeah.
That scene is horrifying.
Yeah.
The dude playing the guitar while there's just a dead body on the ground.
Well, no,
And-
not while they're fucking...
While they're asphyxiating someone.
They're like putting a plastic bag, like killing a guy with a plastic bag over his head. But after that, then one of the Trash Humpers has to take a shit, and he's constipated, and they bring him a birthday cake or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the Trash Humpers care for one another. Did they figure out communism?
I'm not touching that with a
Is
10-foot
Trash
pole.
Humpers-
I'm not
is
touching that
Trash-
with a goddamn 10-foot pole. This is going on public. Yeah, this is going out for
This
the
is
public
going
ears.
on public. You're
This is-
right.
yeah, I mean, it
this
is.
is going on. This is going on public.
The
Trash Humpers.
film has gotten to me. No,
The Trash Humpers are the real Joker. They live in the purest society. We live in a sham society. And the only way to achieve freedom is to become the Jonker and go hump a trash can. That's the thesis.
Yep.
Make it, don't fake it.
That's right.
Can we talk about the music in this? They have a lot of very
big
basic,
quotes.
archaic
Yeah,
songs.
big quotes around
over
music. Didn't Harmony Korine put out like a limited vinyl pressing
Yeah.
of the soundtrack?
I'm pretty sure.
And he hand dirtied each
Yeah,
one
yeah,
before
he just
sent
threw
them out.
dirt on them.
Like took
before
them outside
sending
and
them
like
out,
rubbed
yeah.
dirt on them. So it's like totally can't even play it on a record
Yeah.
player. It's totally scratched up. It's like the perfect ethos of this movie.
That rules.
The quote unquote music in this movie is something. I mean, it's mostly just like little repetitive songs or some other crazy person like wailing away on a guitar, or the dude with the trumpet who's my favorite, who keeps saying, "I reserve the right to die. I reserve the right to die." Just starts playing a couple of notes on a trumpet.
Well, that actually brings up a fun point. That all three of us in this film were able to find a miscellaneous character to identify with, and each one felt natural. I don't think any of us felt forced in that, and I think we all saw it. There's something really beautiful about that. I think we shared a special moment watching that movie. And it started out with...
And it was none of the Trash Humpers, not the people who were killing people. We didn't identify with them.
Yeah, I mean...
Except for now, I do.
I think what's horrifying about the film is that you do identify with them in certain ways.
Because I've become the Jonker.
But what's beautiful, like what was really fun is there's the one sequence. It started with me and the gentleman on the bridge who's waxing poetic
In a
French maid outfit. Yeah, it's like an old bald guy with a beard, and I was like. And I was just looking at him, and I was just like, man, you know, like the French maid outfit, he's like prancing around, he's going off on stream of consciousness poetry.
While one of the Trash Humpers is just lighting fireworks and just like throwing them at the ground.
Yeah, just chucking them. Yeah. I was just thinking the whole. I said during that, this is me in a few years if I just take a wrong turn or two. You know, like if I go on a heroin kick at some point, like that's me. Like that's me. It's, you know, if I just take a few wrong choices, like I just really identified with that guy. And then the next I think was UT's, or was it?
I think it was mine, because it was the guy in the backyard who was just making train noises. Who
Oh my
didn't have
God.
any teeth.
Yeah.
It's just like kind of there's this whole segment where he's just like standing and he's like rocking back and forth from one foot to the other with one fist up above his head, just going chugga 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 toot toot. Just like outside of his trailer.
What I will say is impressive.
Is
he did get the train whistling sound very good.
He did.
He practiced that a lot.
He didn't have any teeth. So
It's easy.
the problem with making
Sure, you
train
can do the
noises
whistling sound.
is that teeth get in your way.
Because it was polyphonic. I was impressed. Like,
yeah, teeth get in
yeah,
your way.
he was
train
making
noises.
the whoo and also the whistling sound at the same time. Like, it was pretty good. But
That's me if I ever like fully embrace like my deep South Alabama roots and just like say fuck it and just buy a trailer and park it in somebody's backyard and become a full-blown alcoholic and develop a dip problem.
And my wrong.
And that's
turn.
not many wrong steps for me.
No,
honestly. That's not that many. Like, that's not super far removed from who I am.
and, like, I think it's the beauty of it. Like, we're all able to do that.
Yeah,
so for
my
you, Ben,
wrong
I
turn.
say all of that with like no animosity or looking down on that man.
no, yeah. Well, I mean, I think if
loved-
anything,
I
it's a
loved
point of
him.
relation.
I loved
Yeah.
him,
My wrong turn guy was a dude just laying down on the bed the whole day, talking about his pecker and playing trumpet.
Playing again being a strong word.
Just 2 notes. But he would say a joke and then just blast the trumpet.
Yeah, like using it as like a punctuation for his poetry.
Yeah.
Waka waka. And with like some absolutely heinous toenails. We get a really nice shot of that dude's toenails. Like, one of them is like a fucking knife. It's like an inch long and like broken off, so it's like sharpened to a point. Like, how he doesn't like lacerate himself with that thing is surprising. But yeah, he's the one who keeps saying, "I reserve the right to die," and though he's not the character that I necessarily most identified with, I think that statement is the single thought from this movie that I resonate the most with. Is that I reserve the right to die. And that's all of our rights as Americans.
And I don't think we see the trash humpers kill him.
No.
And I think
And there's
I
a
think
few-
that might be why.
There's a few characters that we don't. Like, it's not just like
Well, it's the chaos of it, right? Yeah.
that's the thing. That's why it's so great, because it doesn't feel like they're like I said, that they're explicitly out to murder. Like, sometimes they just get carried away and things happen. And we see the aftermath of that a few times. That's another thing that I want to speak to the film's credit, is that I think another reason why it all feels authentic is that other than the guy who they're like choking with the plastic bag, I think they have a belt around his neck too, and they're yelling, "Go to sleep, boy! Go to sleep, boy!" Like, other than that, all of the other corpses we see and stuff, it's all after the fact. We never see the actual murder, and I think that's good, because I think that would make it too fake.
Yeah.
I think that would make it too fake if we saw them murdering people. The fact that we cut from the dude in the maid outfit doing his poetry on the bridge, we cut to his house, and he's just lying in a pool of blood on the kitchen floor, and the trash humpers just talking to each other like, "Oh, you killed the shit out of him! You got carried away, you killed the shit out of him!" It's like, that is way more horrifying than us watching, like, them beating his head in with a hammer.
Yeah.
That would not be as horrifying, I think.
Yeah, there's much less artifice in it because the film chooses to not revel, and that makes it feel more authentic. It really does.
And it's also like they're not carrying the camera around to make a snuff film. That's not their goal. If anything, they have the camera turned off while they're murdering because they're busy murdering. It's not about documenting it. It just kind of happens. Oops, we killed somebody. Whatever.
Deaths like that, I tend to find to be like more unsettling and shaking. This is an obscure and deep and weird tangent of a cut, but like, when we find out in like the third Dark Souls game, when like Aldrich is like eating Gwendolyn, like it's really horrifying, because like the only means of telling you that is just that you see that Aldrich has like a similar form to Gwendolyn from like the first.
He's wearing Gwendolyn.
Gwendolyn, yeah, well, puppeting them around, like their corpse.
Aldrich is. That's why when you lock on, God, I can't believe we're going into.
We can cut it. We can cut it if.
But that's why when you lock on, like when you lock on to Aldrich in the boss fight, you lock on to the sludge below Gwendolyn, not Gwendolyn, because that's not Aldrich.
Yeah.
Aldrich is in the process of devouring Gwendolyn, but Aldrich is the sludge. Aldrich is the goo, the massive black bones and blood and filth that is in the process of devouring this god from the first Dark Souls.
I know my
why
my
Ultra's
wonderful
scary.
trans icon.
And like
was
that
such a
was
shame.
confusing because I killed Gwendolyn in the first Dark Souls. How he doesn't show up to be at by Aldrich in the third one?
Because time
I
is a
killed
flat
that-
circle.
I killed that boy.
Time is a flat circle, and that's the nature of those games.
Damn, true though. Well, I think that is and sort of like the violence taking place off screen in the movie is a great segue to get into the very end of the film, which we've already alluded to a little bit. Which is they're walking around. We see a few scenes of them sort of like peeping in people's houses in the middle of the night. But in this final sequence, we see them looking through the windows of a house where there's like a baby crying inside. And we see them like going up the steps to the house and like trying the door, and it's unlocked. And then it cuts to inside the house, and they have like the baby in like a pram and like a carriage, and it's just like crying and stuff, but they're in this house. Where are the parents? And then it cuts, and then they're just pushing the carriage down the street with the baby, and like Rachel Curran is like singing a lullaby to it. It's like they just fucking went into that house and probably killed the parents and took that baby, but we don't see any of that.
And the juxtaposition with the beginning of them, dragging around all those babies.
Well, throughout the entire
and
film,
teaching the tuxedo kid to smash a baby's head in with a hammer. It takes on such a different context than it would alone. And it's so much more horrifying because of it.
It takes like the baby doll imagery from the rest of the movie and turns it from just being like, edgy, aren't like beat up baby dolls, aren't they spooky looking or whatever, and takes it like, no, these people have a weird kind of fixation on like having a baby, and so at the end they get one. Like, that's kind of, if there's like a story to the film, it's like them looking for a baby and finding it, but it's like, it's so unalluded to, but it's also like such a horrifying and satisfying ending for the movie, because especially we've seen like the way they behave with everything else in their lives. Like, they're going to get bored of having a real life human baby pretty quick, and what are they going to do with it when they get bored? That question,
Horror.
that question does not beg speculating on too much.
Nope. So I do want to go back to like the monologue about being free and like pitying the people in their small lives and the pain there. I think a lot of that, what I personally took away from that scene that I liked the most was how you can read it just as this person suffering, projecting. Here's the thing, right? Like, if you're living like that, you have some nasty toothaches. You have some really horrible physical pain. It's not a pleasant life in any way.
But that's why they're free, because they don't care. They're freed from those concerns.
Right. Well, and it really, and there's that justification there, and so like that justification, that mentality is made easier by, projecting like pain and sorrow like onto just like middle America. And I think that's really neat. You see that, like you see, people who are suffering like project and validate their sorrow, and it can be really deeply moving. I thought there was a lot to that.
I think that's an interesting read. I don't know if I subscribe to it, just in the fact that this movie never feels sad to me, or I never feel sad for these characters. I don't perceive them as being in suffering. I think that they revel in others' suffering, but I
think they do both.
I don't personally see them suffering ever in this movie. I think that they are freed from suffering. They are having a grand time with everything they're doing. They're not lashing out against society. They're making life their plaything, and that's, to them, the greatest freedom. I don't think that they want anything else. I think that how we see them in this film is what they want. They are living in their paradise. That's my read on it. I don't know. I don't think it's a right read. That's how I perceive it. I think that monologue is earnest. I don't think he's projecting. I think he's maybe falsifying sympathy. I think there's a part of him that kind of revels in the people trapped in suburbia's suffering.
What I love
None
about
of this is said explicitly.
What I
so.
love about this film is it is very open-ended in that respect, to the point where it forces you to engage in questions like these. And I think the structure of the film definitely helps.
It forces you to engage, or it forces you to check out.
Yeah.
And I think that's why a lot of people, and why I can understand a lot of people really getting nothing from this.
Yeah.
Because you're absolutely right. You have to engage with it, or you check out and discard it. I don't think there's much of an in-between.
Yeah, 100%. Well, why don't we rate this?
Yeah, let's
time.
do it. Ben, this was your pick, so you do the honors.
Sure. Well, I
think I
think
know.
Harmony Korine has not put out a bad movie ever. I think this is one of his most intriguing ones. I won't say best, but it's one of his more intriguing ones, and it's one has stuck with me for a long time. I think about certain sequences from this movie quite a bit. I find it deeply horrifying and atmospheric. I don't think a movie has captured the feeling that you get from getting lost in a city late at night and wandering the streets alone and, seeing all the filth and gutters and trash around, that this movie quite captures. This is an easy 5 out of 5 for me.
Cleveland, what about you?
I'm gonna go with my usual format, where if I can't find anything to pick apart in a film, then I can't see why I would dock any points. There's nothing I would want to see changed about this film. There's nothing I would want from it. I love how short the runtime is. I think Harmony understood. You can't play this out too long. It is as long as it needs to be. I love how it's cut, how it's edited, how it's shot. And I love how non-formulaic it is. It was a breath of fresh air in that sense. A really stinky breath. The air wasn't very fresh. It was really a breath of trashy air. But sometimes you need that. And yeah, I think it's going to be a 5 out of 5 for me as well. No, I know it is. Yeah, it's going to be 5 out of 5.
Yeah, I can't differ from that. I agree with you, Ben. I don't think Harmony Korine has ever made a bad film. I don't know if this is necessarily my favorite of his films. It's hard to pick favorites. But I do think that in a lot of ways it's his purest film, whatever that may mean, as maybe pretentious as that sounds. But I mean, all I really gotta say is that sometimes in life, God gives you trash, and when that happens, you just gotta hump it. It's an easy 5 out of 5 for me as well. So Trash Humpers is a golden pod. No surprise. Incredible. Fucking incredible. I can't believe we fucking did this movie for this stupid fucking podcast. I can't believe.
Thank you for picking it.
I can't believe we gave ourselves
I'm really
a
glad
fucking
you did.
excuse. We did the most indulgent shit we possibly could have done and gave ourselves an excuse to talk about fucking Trash Humpers. Dear listener, if you haven't seen this movie, I mean, obviously, we all consider it a perfect film, but if you don't, I do not blame you.
Yeah, no, more power to you.
Shit, you got this far in the podcast. This is basically longer than the movie. You might as well.
Yeah. It's what a weird one. I would
recommend
not
giving it a
hold this
shot.
against anyone for not liking it at all.
I would absolutely recommend giving it a shot, because either you're gonna hate it, and that's okay, or you're gonna get something really special out of it. And I think that the possibility of the latter is worth the risk of the former.
And for as ethereal as this movie is, there is very clear intent. It's like I said on the Eraserhead podcast.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not as fond of meandering when the intent isn't clear. But if the intent is clear, I love a meander. Like I love a wander, and I love abstraction. If the abstraction serves something that can be quite gratifying.
In a lot of ways, like the meander is the intent.
Yeah.
Like it's supposed to like that. That's what it's designed to be.
And you know what?
And
sometimes you want a really fast water slide that goes
whee,
or sometimes you just want a lazy river. You just want to hang out in the lazy river, and there's like a lazy river horror movie. You're just there. The point of the lazy river is to be there. It's not to get to the end of the lazy river. It's to be in the river.
Yeah, I said at the beginning, this is a vibes movie. This isn't a movie that you go in for a story or a narrative or character. Like, there's some fun characters, but like this is a vibes movie.
It's a lazy river that's full of trash. Did I ever tell you about the time I went tubing on the River Styx? Now, I know that the River Styx is a literal river in hell, but it's also a river in Alabama. And I was dating someone at the time who would be interested in going tubing on the River Styx, and I was very young and on board, and so we did go. And if I die of like some obscure chemical thing or whatever at some point, it's because I did that. Like we've all been inner tubing like on a river at some point, and it was like a Disney inner tubing experience where the theme is like rednecks. It was amazing. Like first off, the whole fucking floor of this river is just lined with Bud cans, right? And you're tootling along, and you just know that like there are bad septic lines. You know what I mean? Like somewhere along this river, like someone's septic tank isn't very well made. It's a hell of an experience. But I do just remember like looking down at one point and be like, wow, like I love how like the sun is glittering on the rocks, on the riverbed. And oh wait, no, those aren't rocks. That's just tons of Bud cans. Incredible,
well tied, brother.
Yeah, and it's literally called the River Styx too. Amazing, absolutely amazing. I thought it was
it's the river where the souls of beer cans go to die.
Yeah, and sometimes I'm sure people.
Yeah, I mean probably every river, for being real.
That's true.
Anywho, next week it's the long-awaited Candyman reboot.
Yes.
We've been looking forward to this one for a good long minute. It was supposed to come out last year. It got postponed till this year when they could have theaters open. I mean, now people are kind of going into lockdown again, but I think Candyman squeaked out just in time. We're gonna go see it in the theater.
Hell yeah, we are.
I'm fucking hyped. The trailer looks great. Next week, Candyman. Do the thing.
And this episode, as a matter of fact, is brought to you by Candyman, 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 Candyland? Will I finish? Will I say the word? Tune in next week to find out. Maybe I'll get haunted. Or haunted.
All right. Well, I guess that'll bring us to the end of this week's episode. If you've stuck with us this long, I sure do hope you like the show. And if you do, the best way to support us is to head over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star rating and a review. Talk about how we recommended Trash Humpers and it ruined your life. That's fine, as long as the rating is 5 stars.
That's important.
That's important. The bad ratings hurt our numbers. You can also, on this episode, I especially hesitate to do this, but if you want to pay us, you can go to patreon.com/podpeoplepod and become a subscriber. Shout out to our
actual sponsors.
Our our honorary pod boys, Sam Simon and Sarah Morris. You're in this time, you're also honorary Trash Humpers and honorary Jonkers. So we
whether you want to be or not.
We thank you for that. You can follow the show on Twitter at PodPeoplePod, and you can check out our Letterboxd at letterboxd.com/PodPeoplePod, where not only will you find a list of all the films we've talked about on the show with our average ratings and links to those reviews, you can also check out our list of other golden pods, of which Trash Humpers is just the latest in a pretty good collection now of films that we have unanimously scored 5 out of 5. Again, you can find that at letterboxd.com/podpeoplepod. I'm on Twitter, tweeting trash at some spooky snake.
I'm on Twitter at Mr. Sheets.
And I'm occasionally tweeting for Light Arc Studios as we put out more progress on It Stares Back. Stay tuned to join our Discord. Find out more. Play our open beta, because we have some cool, fun levels, so we've added to the end of the game. You can also find my work via DreadXP. As of the time of this release, Spookware will be out. You should definitely go and play it. It's super fun. WarioWare style mini games, all strung together by a fun, cute little plot line involving 3 skeleton boys through their journey through Post-Corpia, the land of the dead. And it's a hoot. It's a real treat. It's a very sweet game. And yeah, I'd recommend it to just about anyone.
All right. Thank you for listening. As always, we love you. Stay tuned. Until next week. Make it, make it.
Make it, don't fake it.
Make it, don't.
God damn it.
Damn it.
3 little devils jumped over the wall, lopped off his head, and murdered it all. And a lop-de-ba-doodle-da-day. Oh, Mr. Devil, you surely love me. La la, la-dee-do-do. Oh, Mr. Devil, you surely love me. Killed his bitch and strung him to a tree and lopped it by doodle that day.